I guess what we'll start with is what were you doing here in Colorado?
Yeah, man, I travel all over the country nearly every weekend. And I was in called Mod TAC, a range up east, teaching defensive pistol. We taught yesterday. We taught defensive carbine today. So 5-hour blocks of instruction on all the stuff that we teach in self-defense.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I did a book signing on Friday as well.
Oh, nice. Where at?
A brewery in Denver. Is this the ring right here?
Yeah, you want to
Oh, yeah. Let me see that. Dude, that's... You sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead. It's pretty cool, right?
Dude, this is badass.
Yeah,
Is it,
man.
I mean, legitimately, it's all real and custom made for you guys, right?
Yeah. It's always like a really cool talking piece because, there's a huge relation between veterans and professional athletes.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like
There is.
there's a big relation there. And I was resonating with you with the TBI talk on Cam's podcast.
Yeah.
Because that's something that like the brain damage issue
It's huge.
is huge, right?
Have you got scanned?
Oh yeah.
Do you have CTE?
Oh yeah, I have brain damage for
That's
sure.
crazy,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, my frontal lobe is just like, it's bad, but it's all, you can reverse that stuff if you get on it.
Yep.
And you do it, there's a thing called brain mapping. You've probably heard of that.
Yeah.
So I do brain mapping, and then I use psilocybin, cordyceps,
Yeah.
all that stuff, and lion's mane. All that stuff kind of helps regrow neurons and shit like that, and it really helps me stay focused. And I'm trying to cut out like caffeine and stuff like that. That helps.
Are you doing carnivore diet a little bit? Or
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I've always been kind of on that,
Meat eater.
Yeah, mostly meat. When I was playing, I had to eat a lot of like sweet potatoes and shit like that just to get the carbs.
Yeah.
Calorie wise, I was like 10,000 calories a day sometimes. So
Of course.
yeah, so it was 8 to 10,000 a day was really what I had to eat.
You're eating like a cow a day.
Yeah, it's crazy. It was crazy, and then cutting that back, it was like work. I never really enjoyed eating because it was like work. So now that I'm done, it's like I do like high intensity workouts and train to hunt. Really is what I'm doing. I'm training to hunt. Because that's what I do now. So I'm a bow hunter, and I just train to hunt, and it's functional training. So I'm like, I'll go in the gym and I'll do like, Shane has done a couple with me where we'll do like, I don't know, we'll do like a deadlift and then a burpee, but like 10 burpees and like 10 deadlifts and then 3 shots with the bow and then like 10 calories on the treadmill, like where we're running, so it's sand, like, those Go Ruck sandbags, using those things and I'll go to like the incline down in, there's a mini incline right here in Colorado, in Castle Rock, and it's like 200 steps straight up. Oof. So I'll do that, and then it's 1.5 miles all the way down on the other side. So I'll carry it up and then walk it down.
That's awesome.
And like doing stuff like that, because that's hunting,
That's a good life. That's a good purpose, I imagine.
Yeah, it makes it fun, and that's been the transition out of the NFL for me has been tough. Was tough at first because I was like, well, what do I do now? And I kind of knew what I wanted to do. Yeah. But I got shoved into this radio thing, and I didn't really want to do it, but it was like a good opportunity. So I was like, I'm going to just try it, Mm-hmm. And I did it, and I really didn't like it because I don't like being in an office. Yeah. And I don't work well around like just random regular people. Yeah. Like I have to be around like high level alpha males. Like that's the only kind of people I really can work with. Yeah. Because if they don't get it, like when I want something done, I want it done now, or whenever I expect things to be a certain way. Yeah. Just because that's the culture in the NFL. Yeah.
And the corporate culture doesn't.
And they don't do that. They're just like, nah, and everything's like kind of kosher. Like in the NFL, if we got in a fist fight, we were best friends as soon as we walked in the locker room, right? Yeah. And I bet it was the same way in the military. You guys probably, you and your boys, like probably your best friends. Yeah. Probably got in fist fights.
Fighting all the time.
Yeah, fighting all the time, like brothers, Yeah. Because that's how it is. So I can't just choke somebody in the, in the office and then everything be normal.
I imagine, so when you transitioned, I imagine you're kind of the exception because a lot of guys don't have a good time transitioning. They fall apart, which is the same for the military side as well.
Well, it's bad. Yeah, it's really bad because what happens is, first of all, you could talk financially, right? That's like the one aspect where you guys aren't getting paid like we were getting paid. Yeah. And you didn't get cared for as like we got cared for. They kind of cater to everything you need. Everything's lined out for you. Yeah. Everything is taken care of. When we need an MRI, it's like next day.
Yeah.
Or that hour. Like they get it right away. Like if you roll your ankle in practice, they got you in an MRI machine a couple hours later.
Wow.
Like it's that quick.
But when you leave,
none of that. And you have to take into account most guys aren't financially literate.
Yeah.
And I wasn't either. Like, luckily, I married someone who is way smarter than I am, and she kind of keeps the wheels on the train on the tracks here. Like, if it wasn't for her, I'd probably be living in a van down by the river. Honestly, like I would have been. I was an idiot. Like I was a poor kid from Ohio. I had $7 in my name when I got drafted, so like I didn't really know what I was doing.
And there's a lifestyle to uphold.
And there's a lifestyle get, and there's this thing where you got to think you're in a locker room with guys that are. Some of these guys are making $20 million a year, $30 million a year, and then some guys are making like $300,000 a year, $400,000 a year.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so it's
the disparity of the distance between those two.
It's a huge difference, right? And you you have to stay in your financial lane, right? And what happens when you get done? Those checks aren't coming in anymore. So you have to be like, okay, what kind of budget am I on, and how are my dividends? And people don't even know what dividends are. I'm like, what's a dividend? At first, what does that mean? And they're like, it means like your money is making you money. You shouldn't have to work anymore.
Yeah.
If you have $20 million in bank, you should be able to spend $1 million a year and still never go broke and double your money in 7 years.
Yeah.
Like that's how it should go.
Yeah.
But a lot of guys don't set it up that way. They're just like, oh, I have this much money. They're just spending principal nonstop. Mm-hmm. So they get done and they keep digging into it. And they have family members they're taking care of, and they have baby moms, and they have, XYZ. And next thing you know,
they're broke.
They're divorced. They're broke. Because when you get done, you don't know what to do, and you're just kind of like lost.
Yeah.
And, whoever your significant other was is used to you being gone half the year.
Yeah.
You're just like mentally
and there's no programs. I imagine the NFL doesn't have a lot of programs of transitioning guys.
No. And they make it really hard for you to like get your benefits and everything. So they just make it what they do is they just grind you down and spit you out. And then at the end, when it's over, they do the same thing when you're trying to get your benefits. Mm. They just make it so you can't get them. They make it so you have to keep going to doctors and seeing doctors, and they deny you this, they deny you that. So if you're persistent, you'll get it, but it takes years to get that.
Yeah, most people are like, I'm out of here anyway.
Right, and then you got to think of the guys that aren't vested vets, right? Because if you're not in the league for 3 years, you don't get pension, you don't get anything. Wow. Like you might as well just.
So 3 years the cap. Once you get 3 years.
Yeah, and that's really it. So and that doesn't count. Like practice squad doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's only active. So on the 53-man roster, you have to be on the roster.
You have to be on the roster.
Yeah, wow. For 2 years and 3 games, because those 3 games equal a whole season.
Jeez, man.
So it's really, it's wild, and the average is only 2.5 years.
I heard that
and there's a reason for that,
I heard that recently, and it's like the average 2.5 years, which is under the cap. Obviously, they don't have to long-term invest in you. But then what do those guys do at such a young age with the rest of their lives?
Well, yeah, they end up doing things like selling insurance. And
they get a taste of like all this lifestyle and all those things. And a lot of them go high and right. They go down the rabbit hole.
And that's why it's like, what you've been able to do is so impressive to me, because you found a purpose outside of what you had already done.
Yeah.
What your career path kind of was it just a natural fit for you? Because I wanted to talk to, not to cut you off, but I wanted to talk to you about, because most people, when they hear special forces, they don't really understand what that really means. Mm. And then to get in even further into it, Delta.
Yeah.
And then you were what was the name for it? What's the name for it?
CAG, Special Force, or Delta Force, same thing.
Oh yeah, CAG.
CAG, that's what it was. Yeah, the acronym is what I was looking for. But like, what does that mean to people that don't know? Anybody that's listening, you're going to explain to them what that means.
Yeah, so as a Green Beret in Special Forces, specifically, a lot of people think, I've had guys go, oh, so you're a Navy SEAL. You say, what do you do in the military? I was in Special Operations. Oh, you're a Navy SEAL, because everybody knows what Navy SEALs are. Each service and branch have specific units that are categorized Special Operations, and they're known as Special Operations Forces. So the Air Force has combat controllers, pararescuemen. TAC-Ps are considered special operations as well. SEER guys are considered special operations as well. In the Army, you have Green Berets and you have U.S. Army Rangers. In the Navy, you have obviously the SEALs. And then you have in the Marine Corps, MARSOC and Force Recon. And when you break out all those services, the job as we rise to the top is essentially the same: direct action, counterproliferation, weapons of mass destruction, hostage rescue, special reconnaissance, and there's a couple nuances in there depending on what organization you work for. So I was a Green Beret. When I was in CAG, which is Combat Application Group, which is a special missions unit, a Tier 1 unit, I was a technical reconnaissance expert. I was known as a recon NCO, and I worked in a low-vis capacity in one of the low-vis squadrons for a period of time. And, at the top, you have special operations, special missions units, which sole responsibility are basically hostage rescue OCONUS outside the continental United States. The FBI hostage rescue team is responsible for CONUS hostage rescues, but they're the tip of the spear.
Yeah.
My experiences from being a E5 Green Beret to Green Beret Sergeant Major in Special Operations, I had a lot of opportunities at doing a lot of different things. And the culminations of my career include being a team sergeant.
You became a sergeant young, right?
I was a 20-year-old sergeant that was airborne ranger qualified and a tomb guard. I was a tomb guard for a period of time, and then
What does that mean? What's a tomb guard?
So a tomb guard is a guard that guards the Tomb of the Unknowns in Arlington National Cemetery.
Okay,
but it's a prestigious job. Like you have to try out for it. You get a badge, a fancy badge. And the Army's been guarding the Tomb of the Unknowns in Arlington National Cemetery since 1948. And it's hard. It was one of the hardest things I've done. As a badge holder, I got my badge early in my career as an 18-year-old and guarded the Tomb of the Unknowns at an early age, before, obviously, the global war on terror and all the things that happened after 9/11. But yeah, it's a cool career field and plenty of opportunity. And I think I took a lot of opportunities in that career.
Yeah. So what led you down that path, do you think?
Well,
Was it your childhood and everything
mostly
like that?
Mostly, I mean, most military guys come from military families. That's just the stat. And my dad was in the Army, my uncle was in the Navy, and it's really all I wanted to do. It's like all I did was play sports. I played football, and I wanted to be a soldier. And my dad had pushed me in the direction and said, "Hey, if you want to join the Army, like." Your cousin's about to join. He joined, and he didn't go infantry, which is I was perplexed by because we grew up together playing soldier, and then I went infantry, and so it was just I think for my family, being a family of service members, it was just a natural protocol for us.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. Playing football and then military, that was my backup plan. If I didn't make it to the NFL,
I think mostly it is for a lot of guys.
I mean, that was my plan because I just was a terrible student.
Yeah,
I just hated school. I didn't like being in. I don't like learning. I have ADHD, terrible ADHD.
Yeah.
So if I don't have like a goal to accomplish in there, right? So it's like when you're doing math and stuff. Math was always kind of easy for me because there's an end goal, right? When it comes to like science and all this other stuff and like, English and writing papers and stuff like that, I was terrible at it because I just didn't have any interest in it. But as soon as I'm interested in something, I never had a problem learning a football play. Ever.
Yeah.
As soon as I learn it, it's locked in there forever.
Interesting.
So it's like, why couldn't I do that with other things? And the only thing I could figure is it's the ADHD. Right. And then, I went to so many different elementary schools. I told you, I don't know if you had it. I don't know your exact childhood, but from what I was listening to on cam, it was, it sounds like a broken home situation.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. For sure.
And do you think that like having a broken home and coming from a broken home, because I know in football, Deion Sanders says this all, he said this when he got to CU, when he just got hired up there. He's like, look, I want my quarterbacks to come from like a good family, good GPA, got both parents, I want my defensive linemen to come from broken homes.
Angry.
They have to be angry.
Mauling.
Yes, right. And do you think that has like a correlation in the military as well?
Yeah, certainly. In fact, most guys that I know in the military, most of them come from difficult situations as children. And I think one component of that is you're obviously having to adapt through difficult adversity and situations, right? Even a family splitting, which is now the norm, right? It's highly statistical highly probable that's going to be you or be a child growing up in a household. But I think that benefits people willing to be adaptive. And so you want an adaptive mindset. And if you're a quarterback, maybe you're a little bit more rigid and conventional. But if you're on the field and you're trying to take somebody's head off, you're a little emotional, right? And you need that grit to push you and to drive you, even to intimidate other people, right? So I think I grew up certainly in a broken home. We didn't have a lot of money. And I think that's like the American story for the most part. I mean, there's more millionaires than there's ever been in the history of our country, and there's more wealth, and that's a good thing. But I think the majority of the country that serves, at least in the military, and who honestly grows up playing football, are just salt of the earth people who have gone through a lot. And so for me personally, I never looked at it as a bad thing. I just looked at it as the situation I was in, and for me, it turned out to be a good thing.
Yeah, never something you said on I don't know whose podcast because over the last couple of days I've been just trying to listen to all the podcasts you've done just to like get refreshed on everything. But you said something that really resonated with me, and it was about trauma, and it was that nobody owes you anything because you've been through trauma.
Yeah,
and I'd spent so much of my life thinking that I had like this chip on my shoulder, and that like I was owed something, you know. I don't know if I owed it to myself to like work harder than everyone else, or, you know, I used it as like a crutch almost, you know, and then something clicked in my head, you know, early in life, luckily, but I think something clicked where I was like, nobody owes me shit.
Yeah.
Like
you got to earn it.
I got to earn this. Like, and then I think it was because I was around successful people that had come from nothing as well.
Yeah.
When I was around those people and I realized like, hey, if they can do it, I can do it. So I took it as like, okay, what's my excuse? There is none. There's no fucking excuse, right?
There's none.
There is no excuse for being, you know, a drug addict, right? Or being, you know, because you made that choice. You make your own choices.
Free will.
Yeah, you have free will. I mean, we live in a free country, mostly free, you know. But we have where you have the choice to make whatever decisions you want. Yeah. So I just made a choice where, okay, I might not be the most skilled player ever, but damn it, I'm going to be the hardest worker. Yeah. I'm just going to work my ass off and outwork everybody in front of me. Yeah. And that could be, this leads me into something else that you said that really resonated with me. When you said, you know, people, you think I think it's social media you were talking about, how it's made everybody want their goals now. Yeah. Like they see a long-term goal, but they want it now.
Instant gratification.
They want that instant gratification, but things take time, right? So it's like one step at a time. And for me, it was one play at a time, one play at a time, one series at a time, one day at a time, one game at a time, one season at a time. And it just was like, next thing I know, I played 10 years in the NFL, won a Super Bowl, and now I have what I have, and now I am who I am. And now I take that same mentality into what I'm doing now. Yeah. You know, with the podcasting, with the hunting show. I'm thinking about I'm going to do some stand-up comedy, I think.
Really?
Yeah, with Kevin McNamara.
Oh, that's going to be fun, man.
Yeah,
that's going to be fun.
Yeah, I have a call with him tonight. We're going to try to put a plan together to just do some shows.
You going to do the practice, the rehearsal, and all the sets and stuff?
Oh, yeah.
That's so fun.
Oh, yeah.
I actually thought about that, too. I thought it'd be so fun because it's not off the hip, but it's very scripted. But if you sat down and you actually isolated that, man, you can come up with some, just based on the stories that you experienced, I'm sure, in the NFL.
Well, the NFL, the things I went through as a kid, like a lot, and they're dark, but I can make it funny. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of dark shit that went down. But it's like, I don't know. I dealt with a lot of, you know, I heard, here I go. I'm going to quote you again, but you said something about, you know, the suicide rate right now. I think the suicide rate is so high because people are like, they don't know, they're not equipped to deal with the stress of the social media, the constant screens, everything you put out there is like under a microscope now, right? Yeah. Never before in human history have we been this connected as a planet. Mm-hmm. It feels like the world is a lot smaller now. So I think that is overwhelming to people.
It's overwhelming, yeah.
You know, so if you could, like, when you said just like staying in your lane, focus on yourself and what you got going, yourself, your family, and keeping your little lane and doing the right things, I think that is a huge help. You know what I mean? And there's all these different natural medicines that you can do, right? With the mushrooms, CBDs, the Wolfe 21.
Yeah, thank you.
That stuff is awesome. It's really helped me.
I appreciate that.
You know, I love that stuff. The sleep aid is really good. I'm actually working with Slumber now too.
That's awesome.
on our own little.
They're great, man, and they're local.
Yeah, really good people.
Yeah, really good people.
Yeah, so
and it's here in Colorado.
Yeah, and they're right here, based in Colorado. They do everything ethically.
Yeah,
I love it. So I just really would like to see people, take those. Don't get so caught up, right? And you said it best, because you said, look, just get through the day, because that low isn't gonna last forever.
Yeah,
it's just like a high. And that was the thing about the NFL, was like, don't get too high on the highs, don't get too low on the lows. Try to stay right here. And that's the hardest thing in life, is just stay right here, because everybody's looking for that high. And then when they get low, it's like this. It's like, oh, I can't deal with it. I can't deal with this like depression, this anxiety. I feel this like constant pressure to like live up to what everybody else is doing. But if you just take a step back and focus on yourself in the moment, it'll slow everything down for you.
Yeah.
And then you can like just get through the day, man. Like, because I had to deal with like a lot of suicidal thoughts. I still do, because it's when you have brain damage or TBIs or CTE, when you have any of that stuff, it's not even like clinic. You can't like cure it with medicine.
It's there.
It's just there.
Yeah.
So you have to just like get through it, like, hey, just accept that it's not going to be there for all day, And it does. It sucks, like days like Father's Day for me are tough. Mother's Day, tough, because I just didn't have those things growing up. So like, I always get these weird like emotions around that time, and I just shut down, kind of like I just don't talk.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, "What's wrong with him?" And I'm like, "I'm just dealing with my shit right now. Like, let me just deal with it,
Yeah.
So, and that's how I deal with it by training. Like, I get into the gym and just punish myself, and that makes me feel better. I don't know what it does, but it works.
Yeah. Probably keeps you chemically balanced.
It does, exactly.
And it's kind of weird being in the NFL, where I look at you guys are in the limelight so often, and I can't imagine going in from like you get a Super Bowl ring and you're at the highest high, and then you just go home and you're just a dad.
Yeah.
And it's like, but I'm, your persona and the way you're representing yourself is such a high level, and then you get home and the expectation is, well, I'm still that Super Bowl champion. And then you get home, it's like, yeah, but is being a dad enough? And for some guys, I would say for the majority of people, being the Green Beret, being the operator, it was enough, but now they live vicariously through that, and now being a dad's not enough. And they don't know how to make that connection, where it's like, being a dad is better than being an operator. Being a dad is better than winning a Super Bowl. At the peaks of the moments that you live in being a father, there are more things that are more impactful, that it's just between you and your daughter or you and your son, that are just going to be so much more impactful in your overall life and scope, that don't include one spectator. Yeah. And that's so important to recognize. And I think the thing that's illustrated and even just talking about, which I think is important, is people need to hear that.
Yeah.
Because if you have no context for it and you don't understand, and you're looking for resources for information, and everybody's like, dude, it sucks, and the world sucks. I always tell people, if they take their cell phone face down and put it away, and all of a sudden it doesn't suck, well, you have your answer. It's like, get the hell off your cell phone, get immersed back with your children. And honestly, just like with the NFL and the military, rebuild those relationships that you put off for so long.
Yeah.
Because if you were a professional athlete, if you're at the top of the game, the allocation of time was not on your side. You had to allocate all the time to be the best in that profession, and you neglected something. But that's okay. That's how it works. Cam Hanes will tell you that. All the experts will tell you that. But just go back and try to strike the balance and repair all the damage that you unintentionally did for good purpose. Have an empathetic mind and an open heart, and you'll repair that, and you realize, dude, I should have done this a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I hope pro football players or people who listen to this don't go, well, you shouldn't be the professional. You shouldn't be at the top of the game. Do that and then strike the balance. Yeah. Consciously strike the balance.
Yeah, because you have to maximize maximize that time.
Yeah, have to.
You only have so much time as an athlete or as an operator. There's only so much time that you can do that, right? There's only a small window. 10 years is not very long in the span of a whole life, Yeah. I retired at 33 years old.
Crazy.
And it's like, okay, well, I was lucky enough to have a passion to get right into.
Yeah.
Right. I feel blessed to have that passion.
The hunting component.
Bow hunting was like, I dove full bore into that. That September came, and I didn't have to think like I'm not playing games right now. What am I supposed to do? I was thinking I'm chasing elk.
Awesome.
I went on 3 different hunts in September, and I put my wife has just been such a rock star through the whole thing because it was tough. Like, okay, I was in Baltimore for 2 years during COVID. Didn't get to see her a lot. We didn't get to spend a lot of time.
Playing football?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because my last 2 years were in Baltimore.
The Ravens?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was just hard, man. We had a brand new baby. She was only 2 years old when she was 2 when I retired. Well, 3. She was 3. But, those first 2 years of her life, I missed almost a whole year altogether. Just, and just because I'm on the other side of the country. She was getting to come visit every now and then, but it's still all the way in Baltimore.
Yeah.
Traveling and putting a mask on a 2-year-old, that just isn't going to happen.
Did they even have crowds when you guys were playing football during
Not in
COVID?
2020.
So there was no crowds?
It was so weird.
So you played football with no spectators?
Yeah.
What? So I imagine like even the sounds that you heard on the field, like smacking pads, helmets, you could hear everything.
It was like practice.
Crazy.
It was just like practice, but like like full go.
Yeah.
Trying to, like, you had to bring your own energy. There was no crowd to amp you up. Like, you'd make a play, and usually I'd jump up and howl, and the whole crowd howls for me.
Yeah.
And then that wasn't there.
So did any guys after you like scored, were you celebrating, or you're like, there's nobody to?
We would all celebrate. We would just. It was fun because it kind of brought us closer together as a team. Because we just would celebrate as a team. But then they they cracked down on that, and they made it really hard for us to like be a team because they were like, as soon as you get off the field, you got to throw a mask on. And it's like, for what? I was just spitting on each other.
Yeah.
We're just spitting and bleeding on each other, and you worried about us putting a mask on? It was insane to me. But
man.
whatever.
Yeah.
We just had to kind of follow the rules.
Yeah.
And then the vaccine thing came along.
Yeah.
The next season, and that was like a whole nother war that we had to fight because they just were like so persistent with us. And I know that some coaches had they had polls going to see if they could get their position group to get all vaccinated.
Wow.
Yeah, because you got to think the NFL is working out a TV deal.
Yeah.
So they had to show that we were never going to not play a game. Like, the games are going to get played no matter what, regardless. Like, we played the first and only ever Wednesday game. And it was Baltimore Pittsburgh, so that rivalry is like huge
On Wednesday.
And we were supposed to play on Sunday. Then they kept pushing it, and then finally on Wednesday they're like, "All right, let's go get on a plane. We're going to play." And we're like, "All right." And we had like nobody,
Crazy.
It was
crazy. Did they do a Super Bowl with nobody?
no.
Or by
the time when the playoff, it's crazy. Once the playoffs hit, they were like, "Oh, COVID, what's that?"
Yeah, and it all went away.
Yeah, it all went
magically.
away.
Yeah, and everybody's
and then
okay.
2021, they had all these rules for the vaccinated and unvaccinated.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't, because there was only like 5 or 6 of us that didn't get vaccinated.
Yeah.
And
you couldn't get into a stadium unless you were vaccinated, right?
well, they made exceptions. It was like certain cities, like New York, you couldn't. But wherever there was no issue up there. It was inside the building. You were segregated. So it was like this big segregation. And when the league came in to explain it to us, because I demanded that we have a meeting with the league because we were in training camp, and it's 98 degrees outside, and we had a full padded practice, 3.5 hour practice. And I'm walking off the field. There's no mask for us to put on to walk into the locker room with. And I'm like, take off my pads and everything. And I'm pounding a protein shake because I hadn't eaten for, since breakfast. So I'm starving. And I'm drinking this protein shake as walking in. The next day I come in and there's a $15,000 fine in my locker. They said you refused to to put a mask on. And I was like, I didn't refuse anything. What is this? And there was like 5 or 6 of us that had that. I think actually it was more than that. I think it was like 10 or 12 of us that had it.
$15,000.
Yes. Pre-tax.
Oh my gosh.
And I think we're getting taxed half of our money anyways.
So you guys fought it. Did you guys get it?
No, they didn't do anything. They came in and had a meeting with us, and they were like, just wear your mask. I was like, don't worry, I'll wear my Star, David. Like, I was like, you guys are addict. He was like, we're just trying to do what's best for you guys. I was like, how is this what's best for us? It's fining us for simple little violations. Why don't...
Yeah. That makes no sense, by the way.
That makes 0 sense at all. I mean, I'm like, what am I supposed to keep a mask in my underwear, like in my pants, like shove it down in my pants and pull it out of there and put it on? I'll probably get sick doing that. Like, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Like old Grundle, duck butter all over it. Like, it's disgusting. Like
where are you supposed to keep a mask?
That's what I'm saying. There was no mask to put on. So I don't.
Crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy. And then like every single day, pressuring you. Come on, like just get the vaccine. Just get it. Come on. It's not a big deal.
That's what it was about.
Yeah,
control.
It's all about control. And you were talking about that on Cam's podcast about the government, how much they want to control what we're doing at all times, and how irritating that makes me. How irritated it makes me. It makes me so irritated to be controlled anyways, because I've been on my own since I was like 11 years old, doing my own thing, Even before that, I was still kind of taking care of myself, but so now I'm a grown man and you're trying to tell me I have to do this, I have to do that. And, it's really frustrating, man. And it makes me kind of crazy. But
that's a good American trait, though.
I think so, right? I think as an American, like it's in your blood to not want to be told what to do.
It should be, and a lot of people don't have that in their blood.
Yeah, well, it's because they're complacent.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a disease.
It is.
It's the complacency disease, don't you think?
Well, I think a lot of Americans don't realize the way this works, which is the hierarchy of different social classes. There's always an incentive for a social class beyond you to keep the social class below them down, right? So they want to stay up and they want to climb the ladder, but there's always an incentive to keep others down. So if you're a politician and you buy into the fact that everybody's a libertarian and you guys could exercise your freedoms across the spectrum of freedom in America, that would go against your ability to stay in your class. Because now all of a sudden, they don't want to buy into welfare. They don't want to buy into any social campaigns where we're taking all the control. Like the idea of parenting. Like there's literally politicians stating with activists that you don't need to parent your children. The government can parent your children for you. We can make decisions for you because we know what's best. And that whole thing is something that strips away freedoms from Americans policy by policy and action by action. And that's what's scary, is what Americans don't realize is the reason we ended up in this thing called the Revolutionary War was because we had literally no freedoms and we had to bow and bend a knee to the monarchy. Well, that monarchy, which exists in the UK and also exists now in a separate facet in Canada, is the exact representation of something we don't want to become.
Right.
Everybody in the UK, which I have lots of friends in the UK, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada, all want to be us, even today, still. Why? Because we're freer than they are. Mm-hmm. And when you look back at history, when you look at the situation we're in now, these politicians who are literally making a life out of being a politician, which is insane.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a limitation on every single aspect of governance. In the military, you serve 20 years. You have to have waivers to get more than 20 years. But as a politician, you could be a senior citizen in a diaper and still working. I mean, you literally are a Supreme Court justice until you die.
Yeah.
That's the tenure.
Which is insane.
So you could be out of your mind, which we know cognitively, beyond CTE is a natural progression and degenerating as a human being, but then you can make decisions for policy for the rest of the country. And so the whole system is broke. And I think for the first time, we're realizing that, and we're also realizing there's no fix.
Yeah.
And that's the scary thing for me is if there's no fix, if there's no profound leaders are stepping in positions to make change, and if those leaders are in position to make change, they get suppressed and completely ripped out of their position, then what hope do we have? And it's meek, to say the least.
Yeah, it's scary.
It's scary.
It scares the hell out of me.
2024 is going to be
interesting.
Crazy.
It's going to be really interesting.
It's going to be super fun, though. I mean, it's going to be fun to watch it all fall apart and hopefully build back up. Because it's like, that's the spirit of Americans. It's like, let's burn it down. But then they're like, well, who's going to build it up?
Yeah.
And I'm all for like the idea like, hey, we need to profoundly burn institutions down, not physically and not literally, but I mean, we need to start over. And I hope we don't get to a campaign where it's like we're going to do drastic things. But
what would drastic look like to you?
I mean, drastic in the worst case is civil unrest in pockets, especially in heavy populated cities throughout the country. Imagine this, like we have an election. 60% of Americans right now think if there's an election held today, this is a bipartisan controversy. Everybody thinks this. If we have an election today, Democrats and Republicans think it will be unfair no matter what. There'll be some kind of AI interference, foreign interference, or other opposing party interference. If that's the case and we have an election, let's say Trump wins. If Trump wins, you have half the country who's disaffected and they want to burn it down. If Biden wins, same exact case. Let's say civil unrest takes place. We saw this with BLM and Antifa. Civil unrest and pockets of violence break out in major metropolitan areas, high population centers. Imagine cops show up, civil protests take place, bad actors are infiltrated, cops get killed, cops shoot back, innocent protesters get killed. However it works out. That is worst case scenario, because now everybody who wasn't on the streets is like, oh, it's happening. They hit the streets. Where will Mike Glover be? I'll be in Heber City, Utah, taking care of my family, protecting them.
Yeah.
And likely not amongst this kind of thing, because it will probably happen in Salt Lake County and Salt Lake City, but not near Heber City in the mountains. This will happen throughout the country. And if this happens, and that's the MO, then imagine these pockets of violence burning the country down, seemingly.
Yeah.
Where now you have groups of American insurgents who think they're campaigning on the right side of history and fighting on the right side, and they target police officers.
Yeah.
And then vice versa, you have police officers who are literally targeting bad guys that they think are bad, and it's wild. It's the Wild West. That's worst case, because then the military has to come in, and then you're talking about, like, where do we go from here? And a president would have to be the right leader to get through that situation strategically and tactfully without burning the country to the ground. And it's only a couple steps. I mean, we're a couple steps away from that.
Oh yeah, I think so too.
Scary.
And it is scary. And it, like you said, when you were talking about the civil unrest, I was thinking about, these, what they call it, the DMZ up in
DMZ, yeah.
Up in, where was that at?
Korea, on the border
Yeah.
of Korea?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I can imagine like that would happen here. Like we would have an area where like you just don't cross.
Well, imagine this. I think, a lot of people forget that we are a United States of America. It's what makes America. And the benefit of that is we were supposed to have decentralized powers pushed to the states you lived in. And the federal government had its buy-in and the state had their buy-in. That's in a perfect world. Well, now we're seeing a lot of federal overlap. Like the idea of Biden saying, we're going to pay off all the student debt loan for federal student debts. He's literally making and campaigning for taking taxpayers $300 billion. I mean, the net on student loans across the board is over $1 trillion. But federally, out the gate, he was saying, we're going to relieve $300 billion of debt. Well, where does that come from? Well, the taxpayers pay for it.
Yeah.
So the idea that states would buy into that is ludicrous, which is why you have representatives in Congress. So that was the whole beef. The beef was saying, hey, you are an executive function of the executive branch. We regulate you. The Supreme Court is a supreme law using the Constitution. You can't do that. Like, what do you mean we can't do that? We're the president. It's like, you're the executive branch.
Yeah.
You know how you could do that? You can get the buy-in from Congress to approve it, get the approval from the Senate, and then legally make it a law or legally make it a whatever, and we get this done. Well, the problem now is the decentralization of states have so much collusion with the federal government. Like California is completely colluded with the federal government, which is why it's likely collapsing. You got states like Utah who are like, leave us the hell alone. Texas is the same way. Leave us the hell alone. And they're thriving. So in that worst case, well, what would you do if you're a good governor? Well, you would literally create a demilitarized zone around your state and have entry and exit points leading into your state to protect the citizens of your state. I think, interestingly enough, and maybe controversially enough, that's best case scenario. Because I want like my pass to go into Utah, Montana, Wyoming, and the place in Colorado that I frequent, without worrying about people who are radical extremists, who are Antifa members from Seattle wanting to come to Colorado and burn it down.
Right.
Which is how it works. They're all They're all foreign external actors who are coming into locations where they know that it's a hotbed for violence or their activism.
Yeah.
So it's scary, but I mean, I think that would be a good thing in some cases.
Yeah, because then it would keep us so we could be we could still stay a country. You know, we'd still have a country.
Yeah.
Because if you have all out civil war, where it's just like every man for himself,
It'd get bad.
It would get so bad
And desperate.
and extremely desperate because most people can't survive, 16 hours without, power. Like they can't make it a day without power.
Mm-hmm.
So they have no idea how to survive. And that leads me into the next thing. So what did you do after Delta Force? What did you do after that? Like did you just like transition easy out of that into you went to the CIA, right?
So my Army career, I was only in Delta I was in the unit for 3 years. And from that, I actually left as a newly promoted master sergeant. And I was talking offline with one of your guys about this. I started a commanders and extremist force, which is a reinforced special forces company, a specialized company called C210, which is Charlie Company, 2nd Battalion, 10th Special Forces Group. They handled the continent of Africa. So after I left the organization, I stood up that organization with another unit member, and we were sniper reconnaissance experts that had a lot of combat experience, and we stood this unit up. As soon as we stood it up, I was the first to deploy to Libya right after Benghazi. So Benghazi was September of 2012. I deployed to Benghazi October 2012 and spent 6 months there working a counterterrorism program. From there, I got recruited for the CIA. And so I transitioned from military active duty as an E8 to going into the reserve component of special operations or special forces. And I was in 19th Special Forces Group as a team sergeant and then eventually a sergeant major, and then worked in the CIA for nearly 3 years.
And what was that like?
It was awesome, man. The CIA is a good organization. Like institutionally, all these institutions deal with high-level political actors, but at the ground level, all these organizations have really good people on the ground, and the CIA was no exception to that. They were amazing.
Are you allowed to talk about some of the stuff? What kind of things were you like? What was your main mission when it came to working for the CIA? What was like the one thing that stood out, like your favorite part of it? Like your favorite mission, your favorite goal. I know because I just don't know what that looks like.
Yeah, a lot of people don't, which is a good thing. I think for the most
all I know
part.
is what I hear.
Yeah,
and it's like what do I know? I don't know anybody that has ever been in the CIA. So
yeah, so the CIA is so you've seen the movie 13 Hours in Benghazi?
Yeah.
I will tell you, there's a lot of that movie that's completely bullcrap, and it's Hollywood-esque. They had to do that, but a lot of that job, as depicted, is exactly how it was. For example, in the movie, they show the guy show up from the airport. He gets picked up. The guy hands him a Glock and like a radio. That happened to me when I first infiltrated into the countries that I was in, and it's like, oh, here's your gun, here's your radio, time to go to work. And for the most part, it wasn't really sexy. I mean, you're doing a lot of sexy things in the background, facilitating a lot of operations that are big picture, but you don't get to see a lot of the big picture effects that you have on the ground in the moment. But essentially, I was a bodyguard for intelligence officers operating in very extreme environments. And they paid me for my resume. So when we show up, we validated, we vetted, and we get trained, and then we go to war, go back to it, except we're paid really well.
Yeah.
And we're treated really well. I mean, I had chefs in the CIA everywhere I went. I ate good. I had immaculate gyms, access to facilities that I never had in the military. So for a poor Army kid growing up from an E1, like no rank, to a sergeant major, it was a different world, a world that I'd seen in the background in the Army a lot. I worked with the CIA when I was on active duty, but seeing it and being in it is different. And I just thoroughly enjoyed it, man. I think I had everybody I worked with in the CIA on the GRS side, the Global Response Staff Office side, were I felt confident if shit hit the fan, they were going to be able to take care. We were going to be able to take care of each other. I didn't feel that level of confidence everywhere I went in the military. Certainly in certain organizations like Combat Application Group, everybody there knows what the hell they're doing for the most part. They're competent operators. The CRIF, the Commanders in Extremist Forces, most of those guys are squared away. But every guy I worked with in GRS that was riding shotgun with me with a Glock 17 in his waistband, I knew if shit hit the fan, that dude knew how to shoot, move, and communicate, and that was a different feeling.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's I've been part of on a not so much of a dangerous level, but on the field, I've been a part of the best teams that I was a part of. Every guy on that field, like our Super Bowl 50 team.
Yeah.
Every single guy on that
right?
field, even like the backup, right? I knew that I could count on him.
Yeah.
And the teams that we didn't have success with, I had to I couldn't count on the guy next to me. When you can't count on the guy next to you, it's like you're doing twice the work. You're doing too much. You're not focused on just your job.
Yeah.
When you can focus on just your job, knowing that you can trust this guy behind you or the guy beside you,
Yeah.
I'm sure that makes a huge difference in the military, especially on any kind of operation you're going on. Just the day-to-day peace of mind, that peace of mind, knowing that okay, he's got my back. He knows I got his back. It's going to be good.
Yeah.
And
I imagine you work with those guys a lot leading up to the Super Bowl.
Well, yeah, you're practicing every day together,
Yeah.
and that, Von Miller and I had been, we played 8 years together, right next to each other. We had 136 sacks together. That's a ton of sacks.
Yeah.
That's a ton of time in the backfield on a quarterback. And a lot of it was just us. So we didn't have to talk. We just could use our eyes to understand what the other guy was about to do. But that's built over time, right?
That's so awesome.
You have to build that trust and that camaraderie, right? That brotherhood, right?
Yeah.
Because he was like a brother to me. He still is. So it's like when you when you take that same attitude into the military,
Yeah.
when you guys are clearing a room or you're approaching a vehicle or you're approaching a target, that everybody in your group knows what the hell they're doing.
Yeah.
Right? There's not that one guy, because on the football field, if 10 guys are doing everything right and one guy's doing something wrong, they could still score a touchdown.
It's all screwed up. Yeah.
They can still score a touchdown, right?
Yeah.
So everybody has to be doing their fucking job.
Interesting.
So it's everybody, it's this team, it's the ultimate team sport, football, man. On the offense and defense, both, especially on the defense, because you have to be doing everybody, if somebody's blitzing a gap and I'm not, and I'm in the way, now 2 people are out of the play. Now we're both out of the play and we're screwed, because now something can go wrong and something terrible can go wrong out there. Nobody's going to get killed, but at the end of the day, it's the same concept. And when I was, we had a coach named John Fox. His dad was a SEAL. So John Fox used to bring SEALs all the time, Green Berets, and he would bring fighter pilots, because they all were talking about team. It was all team first, right? And it's what can I do for the guy next to me?
That's so cool.
I'm not doing it for myself. I'm doing it for him.
Yeah.
I got to make sure I know my shit because he needs me to.
The crossover's so fun.
That's why I love hanging out with vets and talking to vets, because the crossover is it's spot on.
Yeah.
Of course, somebody fucking rings the doorbell.
Barely heard.
That's you barely hear it, but it's the crossover is just, it's so much fun to me to pick the brain of a high level special forces guy that can just because to me you guys are the smartest people out there.
Yeah.
The alpha of the alphas.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of people I like to be around.
We think the same. I think our community thinks the same way about professional athletes, because I know a lot growing up with very talented and physical specimens in special operations. A lot of these guys were D1 athletes, and a lot of us, depending on our journey and path, could have potentially been professional athletes. And so that crossover is so cool, because I know a lot of professional athletes I talk to and are friends with, if given the opportunity, they would have crossed over and went into the military to do whatever that thing is. I mean, which I think is really cool. I think it's really cool.
So in 2013, I bruised my spinal cord and I was paralyzed. And I played 2 weeks later, and then I was playing good football, but I was something wasn't right. I was losing feeling in my arms a lot. I was getting stingers. You know what stingers are?
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
getting a lot of stingers, really bad ones. I couldn't sleep. I was having crazy hallucinations. Well, fast forward to 12 weeks later, I had a seizure, and it almost killed me.
Oh, wow.
The seizure almost killed me. It put me in the hospital. I was in a coma for 36 hours.
Wow.
It was really bad. When I came out of that coma, I was genuinely contemplating just saying, fuck it. Like, I'm going to go to the military. I'm going to find something. I want to find something in that field that I want to do because.
Was it a hit?
Oh yeah, I got hit in the top of the head. Somebody cut my legs, and then the fullback came and speared me on the top of the head.
Oof.
And I just melted into the ground, and my whole body felt like, when you sit on a shitter for too long,
and
you stand up. That's how my whole body felt. My mouth, I couldn't talk for 3 hours. Dude. I was like that, and then like I said, I played 2 weeks later, and for 12 weeks I was playing good football, but I was miserable. Like I was really in hell. Like I couldn't sleep. I was having these at night I would wake up paralyzed in fear with a figure standing over me.
Crazy.
And it was like the craziest shit ever. And I knew it wasn't real, but it was like, how can I can't keep this up, And then I found other ways to like kind of battle that, healthy ways, because I just wasn't done playing yet. Like I made a decision like, no, I'm going to keep doing this.
Yeah.
And I did. And I kept going, and I ended up winning a Super Bowl, got my big paycheck, and made it out, but I still deal with like some residuals from that, as far as injuries go, like my neck and my hips and my elbows, my fingers, and my feet, like everything hurts all the time.
Yeah, and you're so young too.
Yeah. So I have to do everything I can to to me, it's just keep moving. As long as I keep moving, just staying mobile, like continue to move, pushing myself, because I feel like if you stop, it's like concrete settling.
Oh yeah, man.
That concrete settles.
Yeah.
It's like a long ruck, right? Like when you're like on a long ruck, if you sit down,
you're screwed.
You're screwed. Keep going. Stay up and keep moving, because if you sit down and that lactic acid settles,
your
it's
feet
like,
swell and
Or to me, it's like when we're hunting and people take their boots off.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude,
keep getting it back in.
You're not getting your foot back in there, man. Like keep the boot on, unless for a fact that thing can fit. So yeah, I just am really grateful that I was able to come out of that, and
a lot of guys don't, right?
A lot of guys don't. Yeah. A lot of guys would have hung it up. And a lot of doctors told me to hang it up, but I was like, nah, I'm not done. And
that was pre-Super Bowl.
That was pre-Super Bowl, yeah.
Awesome.
That season we went to a Super Bowl and lost to Seattle.
Wow.
In New York. It was.
And then the following year you won? Or
the following year, no. We went to the playoffs and lost, and then the next year after that.
You guys won.
Yeah, we went and won with our defense was just fucking unreal. So that defense was disgusting.
That's crazy. It was year
2015. Yeah, it was an unbelievable team. Okay, so I'm trying to stay on track. But all right, so you do this, you go to the CIA.
Yep.
And then you get done then you decide to move out of that. What did you move into after that?
So I started my company, Fieldcraft Survival, back then, and I don't say it a lot, but the first thing that happened when I got out of the military / CIA, because I was in both. I mean, that's the reason I was so taxed, man. I would come back from Africa from the CIA, put on a uniform, and deploy as a sergeant major to Africa. And it's like I had no life.
Yeah.
And it sucked because operationally, if there was a war going on, it never sucks. Because conflict and combat is something that I strove to be involved in. And nearly every year of my military career, I deployed to war.
You think it was the adrenaline?
No, it wasn't necessarily adrenaline. It was more, I think there's a big misconception for the military about adrenaline. Because at a certain point, when you're operating, when you're going overseas and you're doing the job, you get really good at it. And so you really miss it. Like being on target, doing the planning, doing rehearsals, going on target, killing bad guys, coming back, going to the gym, eating chow. That cycle becomes very addictive.
It's the same in football, man.
Yeah.
It is the same
It's got to be. It's got to be the dopamine, right? It's got to be all the endorphins. The routine. Like a lot of people, my favorite thing is when special operations guys say they're unconventional. I'm like, no. Don't confuse unconventional warfare or unconvention with what you are, because you're more regimented. The most elite soldiers in the world are more regimented than any soldiers. That has nothing to do with how you operate on the battlefield in convention or unconvention, but your routines are locked and dialed.
I would to cut you off there. I would say that applies for anybody that's
100%,
elite at anything, elite in business, elite in medicine, elite in science. Elite. I mean, look at the routines that these guys do.
Look at Cam Hanes.
Yeah, dude, this guy's an animal. He blows my mind. That's when I went up there to do that podcast. I said, "Hey, how far are we running?" You know, and he was like, "You're not running. You're carrying a rock." And I was like, "All right, perfect."
Yeah,
Perfect.
I was happy too.
Yeah.
But still, bro, I carried this 80-pound or the 70+ pound sandbag on my back, and I didn't have to carry the rock because it was the last class that he did. I think yours was the last one he did the rock.
Yeah,
we did the sandbags, and it still sucked. But it's like he just ran up. He's 55, and he like ran up it.
like it's nothing.
Like nothing. He wasn't breathing at all.
Yeah, we're going up this thing, and he's like talking to me the whole time, and it was he's I just because I grabbed it and it looks so small when I grab it, but it's an 80-pound rock.
It's 80 pounds.
Yeah, it's an 80-pound rock. And I just grabbed it and threw it on my shoulder, and we go, and he's like, "Oh, that thing looks like a baseball in your hands," And I was like, "I don't feel like a baseball."
And then you got to come back down.
Well, yeah, I took it up and carried it. He said, "Nobody's come back down with the rock yet."
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was the first one to do it with the rock to go up and down.
So you went up the back mountain way.
Yeah.
And then you went down the...
No, we came down the same way.
Ooh, that's brutal.
Yeah, we came down the same way.
Yeah, I carried it up and then went down the paved way.
Yeah.
Which was easy.
Yeah, we didn't do that. I think you know why I think he did that? Because I almost fell like 5 or 6 times. I was slipping and sliding all over the place.
He wanted that footage, man.
Oh, yeah, he wanted the footage. But it was great because the whole way up, he's like, "Oh, you're doing great, man. Like, keep going. You're doing great. Doing a good job. Wow, you're doing good." I was like, this guy is like the best coach ever.
His habits, his routines, his work ethic is what makes him one of the best in the world.
Oh, absolutely. And I told him that. I said, "Dude, you are a testament that, you don't have to be a big, strong, crazy athlete to be successful in this world."
Yeah.
Like and especially in America.
Yeah.
And especially in these times when everybody's so fragile and weak. Like you are like the perfect example of a guy who just outworked everyone.
He's what I want to be when I grow up. I mean, he's what I want to be when I'm his age.
I know he's the one. He inspired me to do this podcast.
Really?
Yeah. He was like, "Dude,
that's how new this is?
Yeah, this is my 4th episode.
Congrats, man.
Yeah.
That's really cool. You
Yeah.
should
Well,
be
fifth.
doing
You're
that.
my fifth. You're my 5th episode.
You should be doing that. That's really cool.
Yeah, thank you, man. He was like, "Man, you're a great conversationalist. You should be doing a podcast." And I was like, "Well, I'm thinking about." I was kind of dragging my feet. I had already had like the table, and I just was like kind of dragging my feet with it because I was like, I don't know if I want to do it in my house. I don't want to, are people really going to want to come and do this?
Yeah. Well, when you hit me up, I'm like, hell yeah.
I was like, you know what, man? I was like, I feel like people will definitely want to come do this and talk to me. Like,
hell yeah.
And I love hearing people's stories, anyways.
Yeah.
I love like sharing stories with people.
Yeah.
That's like my favorite part about hunting. Is that you get in a campfire and you just sit there and bullshit talking stories
that
and
too, man.
busting each other's balls. You can't tell me that's not one of your favorite memories about being with the guys is busting each other's balls. Like
that's all it is.
Yeah, that's all it is. It's a nonstop like roast fest on each other. Like, that's all we did in the locker room. Everyone's roasting each other nonstop.
Constantly.
It's just constant.
And any outside entity that comes into that, they're like, what the hell? Like, this is every day.
They don't even
every
get it.
minute of the day.
Well, you got to think every day we get from coming from practice, there's reporters in the locker room with us.
Really?
So the reporters are all like, I can't believe these guys fucking talk like this.
Yeah.
They used to have all these HR meetings with us because like they had females in there all the time, right? And
You're tucking it back and just doing weird
stuff.
stuff.
Doing all you're butt ass naked all the time.
Yeah.
Walking around naked, walking around, slapping each other with towels. You know what I mean? Playing dominoes, butt ass naked on the table. Like just, it's just like that's the locker room though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's your space.
That's our space. So we're gonna be ourselves here. And then like post game, even like after we win a game, we're all naked running around, like just a bunch of boys, but we're grown men now doing it, and it's like, it's the funniest shit.
That's what you miss the most, though.
And I do miss it, and that's why, that's what I was telling you. I was on a bear hunt with Josh Smith just recently.
Oh yeah, he told me when I stopped by his house the day before you guys went on a hunt.
Yeah,
how was that?
It was phenomenal.
Were you successful?
No,
yeah,
no, but and that's why I love hunting.
Yeah,
and that's why hunting and football are so related to me because. I say this all the time. I failed so much more than I succeeded on the field because how many times did I rush the passer? Right, I have 36 regular season sacks. Nah. Played 10 years, so think about that. Wow. How many pass plays I didn't get to him?
Yeah,
or I almost got to him.
Yeah,
and it's the same way with hunting. I almost did get a bear.
Yeah,
if I would have had a rifle, he would have been done. But I love the bow hunt. You know, so I took my bow, and they were all like, "You should have brought a rifle." I'm like, "Well, it is what it is,
Next
man.
time.
Yeah, it is what it is."
I do like that too. Yeah, it's not guaranteed.
And I always talk shit when I'm out there too, because that bear was chasing a sow around. I said, "That's the last piece of pussy he's gonna get," you know, because I was gonna get him because I thought he went down into this little brush pile or this little timber pile to breed. And then as soon as I went to make a move, the wind switched, and I was like, "Oh, it's over." And I was like 100 yards from him.
And he knew he got hit with it.
Oh, you could tell. Yeah, I heard him kind of moving down through there, and I was like, "Yeah, it's over."
Yeah.
And that was the only day we saw bears.
Did Josh guide you?
No, he didn't guide me. We had a guide that knew the area.
Oh, okay.
And he hiked our dicks into the dirt. Like he was hiking our asses off. Oof. It was in the Bitterroot, so it's just like straight up and down.
Those are brutal, man.
And I love it. Like I love that.
Yeah.
I hate coming down. I don't mind going up. I hate
coming down's hardest.
It's hard on my hips and stuff, and I'm bitching the whole time.
Yeah, it sucks going down. Going up's easy for me too. I got the legs, like hiking legs going up, but down all the joints, the toes.
And then it was wet and rainy the whole time, so you're just like every log you stepped on, you fell and just slipping. I'm like, a guy could tear his ACL out here real quick. You know? Like you gotta be careful out here.
How did Josh do?
Oh, he crushed it. He can move through he was like a mountain goat. Yeah, he was a lineman.
He's like born and raised in that.
Yeah, and he was a lineman. Yeah. And if you hear the stories about the stuff they had to go do, I'm like, what? Yeah, he's like, you have to carry a 100-pound saw, and then all your gear. You'd have like 170 pounds of gear, and then you'd have to hike 7-8 miles.
He's a beast, man.
Yeah, he is an animal, and what he's been able to accomplish with his company and the way he's been able to bring people together with his company,
so cool.
Is just like the coolest thing ever, and I love being around him.
Yeah, same. I love Josh, man.
Yeah, I love him. He's just one of the best. I'm going to be with him I'm leaving Thursday morning to go out to Utah for TAC.
Oh, that's right.
Are you gonna be there?
Yeah. So I won't be at TAC. I'm podcasting John Dudley.
Oh, nice.
On Sunday. And my company will be there. We'll have a booth or like a setup there. But yeah, that's a big deal. I mean, and where is it? It's Park City?
It's
or not Park City.
It's Brighton.
Brighton, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's in Brighton. So I'm going to go out to that. And I'm just going to stay with him. They got an Airbnb. And he's like, "Yeah, we'll bring a cot for you." I was like, "All right, perfect." Perfect. I don't mind sleeping on that. It's perfect for me.
They need a big cot for you.
Yeah, it's a big cot.
Oh, okay. They got a big cot.
Big cot. I told him I'd sleep on the floor. How "Nah, we'll pack a cot." And I was like, "All right, cool."
Awesome. Yeah.
All right, so let's get back to what we were talking about. How was the transition out of the CIA? Like, what was that? What were the challenges to that? I guess is what I'm looking for.
Well, one of the biggest challenges was getting used to just being normal, whatever you define normal as, being civilian.
Yeah,
I know for a fact you had to go through this. Yeah. And so, like a lot of people immediately, like I had all the things, right? I was 100% service-connected disabled, so I had TBI, PTSD related to the TBI, all the ailments and injuries. But a lot of people immediately associate transitional issues with post-traumatic stress, and that's not always the case. I think combat-wise, traumatic-wise, I'm really resilient because I never had issues or hang-ups with, the losing guys and all the things. Like I just didn't, and it's not like a suppressed secret. It's just I'm more resilient to it. But certainly, I had issues with transitioning, going from this guy or persona, sergeant major, to just a normal guy. Yeah. So I remember at the time I was dating this guy.
Is it like an identity? Like that was your identity?
It was identity, almost. But also just the routine of it.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, even in GRS, I worked out 2 hours a day, every day. And I would do Jim Jones, I would do Black Horse, or all these like advanced endurance things. And I consider myself at the time 230 pounds, like an endurance athlete, because I could push and pull my own body weight. I had good upper body strength. And even going from that to, am I going to work out today? Like, why do I work out now? Oh, yeah. Right? And it's like, there's no reason to. And then not doing that, not getting sleep, and then like I actually discovered CBD during this time period in combination with CBD. And we were talking about Wolfe 21 because at the time, the Veteran Affairs System had me on sleep medication, and it made me feel like a zombie. Mm-hmm. So I was dating this gal. She was a really good person, and we had a real good setup. And I had started Fieldcraft Survival as a business, and I really gave her a hard time because I wasn't prepared to just cut cold turkey my entire persona in life and just get up with her every morning and be a boyfriend. You know, like, what's your new identity? I'm a boyfriend. That's all I got. And like literally have nothing else. I'm like, I kind of am the CEO, I guess, because it's just me and her. And I didn't have any connections in the military. So it was tough, man. And I started rediscovering my identity through my company, Fieldcraft, intentionally. I want to say unintentionally, but it's completely intentional. Because I'm like, well, dude, I want to hang out with the guys. Let me just hire one of my former teammates. And I hired one of my former teammates, and we would go and teach people on the range, and it felt like being on teams again.
Yeah.
We would teach, just like I did today, 9 to 2, get off, and we'd drive 16 hours back to Colorado from California, 16 hours straight, and it was easy because you had like your buddy.
Yeah.
You know, and like you're chugging monsters, you're like pissing on the side of the highway, you're just doing all these things that felt like team life, but it was short-lived because everybody has a different path. And so eventually, after screwing up and admittingly destroying that relationship, I had to kind of find myself. And so I didn't have an easy go. It took me, I feel like I'm just now getting my shit together. And here we are 7-8 years from starting the company, where I'm like, okay, now I kind of get it. And I'm in my 40s and like I'm just getting around to being squared away. But even then, I lapse every once in a while.
Yeah, and so I understand that, like totally understand that.
It's a battle, right? Every day you wake up.
It's like, you know, there's that animal that stays caged up. He's caged up, you know what I mean? Like there's if anybody's ever listened to my Rogan, you hear what my mentality was going into a game. Like I was there to fucking take your soul. Like, that was my goal, was to fuck you up. Like that was
hurt you.
I'm trying to fucking kill you. Like I'm not using weapons and this and that, but I'm manhandling grown ass men. You know, these 350-pound dudes are going to try to move me. And then I always say, you guys like Derrick Henry and Marshawn Lynch are coming through the hole afterwards, you know? So it's like, I have to be in a whole different mentality. So I'm like, you know, I was taking mushrooms, taking psilocybin, microdose before a game. And then I was like,
sweet,
super. And I was mixing that with Adderall. Oh. So I'm like, and then I'm
focused.
Yeah. So focused and so able to, and that psilocybin allowed me to like really tap into the rage and control it.
Yeah.
And I could just like stay calm. And it was crazy because I'd go into the bathroom for home games because we have a bathroom right there off the sideline. Like after the first series, I'd like get the jitters out and then I'd go into the bathroom and just like scream at the mirror, just like screaming. Like, and I always called it going into berserker mode. Because it's like I was like in touch with these ancestors, like these Viking ancestors. You know, 'cause I did all this.
And you look at yourself in the mirror in the eyes?
Yeah. I did all this treatment to like look into past lives and where I come from. Because that's the other thing that I struggled with was I didn't know where I came from.
Oh, okay.
Because I didn't know my dad.
Yeah.
And my mom was like, I didn't really have a good relationship with her at all.
So you're rediscovering.
So I was like I was discovering myself and like figuring out who I am and where I come from. And then once I figured out I was like from Scandinavia. And I do have Viking blood in me.
I could have told you that without a DNA test.
Right. I mean, I always kind of knew it, but it was like, dude, I would go into this crazy berserker mode and like you said, come on. And then I have to turn it off afterwards. Right. So,
yeah. And just be a normal person.
So now sometimes like, I just want to let I want to let the big dog eat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I need to get out and hurt something.
You're in Applebee's now, like raging.
Yeah.
It's like, what the It's like, what?
It's you know, and it's a balance, right? I have to balance it. And that's why, you know, my wife and I have this argument every now and then because she's never been like timely. So like being on time is not important to her.
That aggravates that.
And it makes me crazy sometimes.
Makes me crazy too.
And it's just like, even though there's no reason to like even be that way, you know. But,
but you grew up that way.
But I grew up that way, you know, that like you're on time no matter what, you know. And when I got to the league, there was a financial payment. Like you had to pay when you were late. So I was and I'll never pay.
What's a late fine?
It just depends on what they want to fine you. Like sometimes it's only $2,000, sometimes it's $15,000, sometimes it's $25,000. Like it just depends.
Oh God.
You know, it just depends on what they want to do to you. Like your third offense is going to be the big one, you know. And I was only late once in 10 years.
Really?
So, and it was because we had a blizzard and I left 2 hours early.
And did they fine you for that?
It's 10 miles down the road here. It's not even 10 miles, like 7 miles down the road where the facility is.
Yeah.
From here. And I had a house that was even closer to it. And I left 2 hours early because we had this bad blizzard coming, and all 3 ways to get there were just like,
Yeah.
And
they still find you?
And they still find me. Yeah.
They must have
$2,500. Yeah.
They must have raked it in that day because
I was a rookie, so they were like,
oh yeah. You're getting.
And there was like all of us were everybody. The whole team was late pretty much.
Yeah.
The only guys that lived like across the street, made it on time. But so Fieldcraft survival. So explain what that is.
Fieldcraft survival is my attempt at this genre of preparedness. And it says survival in it, but it's really about preparing in advance for surviving the worst case scenario. So I always say, like, in special operations, if you go to do a hit and you land on a foreign safe house of terrorists that are clacking themselves off, well, we had a high probability of success in the worst case scenarios we deliberately put ourselves in. And when I migrated or transitioned to a civilian, I realized nothing like that existed. Sure, you could take a tactical class or you could take a first aid or CPR class on the road, but nothing prepared civilians in lifestyle and culture to live a preparedness lifestyle. So if you're in the military and you're special operations, that's not a job. A lot of people say, well, it's just a profession. It's like, no, it's not, because you're thinking about all the time your lifestyle, which includes health and wellness, physical fitness, shooting well, all the things, planning contingencies, etc., are what make you great at that job. So when you transition to being a civilian, you're like, oh, so nobody cares about anything? Like, you see people texting while eating a sandwich, while putting on their makeup, while driving. And you're like, what the hell? It's like, we are completely distracted and disconnected from a primal world.
Yeah.
So I wanted to kind of create a template, preparedness pillars, I call them, and giving people education, training, and equipment that's going to help them be prepared for the worst case scenario. And I say worst case, and most people immediately, because they don't like preppers, they think tinfoil hat guys. Worst case is not the zombie apocalypse. I mean your worst day. And if somebody says, well, what's my worst day? Their worst day could be a car accident.
Yeah.
It could be a UTV accident. It could be you just got a phone call that your mom has stage 4 cancer. How do you get through those things? How resilient are you? How do you work through the process? How do you plan for the worst case? How do you survive? Those things are things that we specialize in now.
Yeah. So I love that you do that, because I feel like most people, a lot of people that I know really close to me, like I told you I have that property up in Fairplay.
Yeah.
When I first bought the property, my wife and her friend and my oldest daughter were all up there, just kind of like walking the property and looking for the exact spot where I told them where I wanted to build.
Yeah.
But I wasn't able to go, so my wife she had to like go back to the car to meet the real estate agent. My friend and my daughter get lost out there, and you got to think this is like national forest,
Back to
Pike National.
Yeah.
So it's like you're a million acres going deep in there. Like you don't know if you don't know how to work a compass or like which direction you came from. Even like it all looks the same when you get in there, So you don't have any reference to how to get out. Well, my wife told me the story when she got back about how there was like pandemonium in there. Like, they panicked, completely panicked, like freaking out, yelling at each other, like
running around in circles.
Yeah, they're just going in circles. And I was like, well, that's because if you've never put yourself in that situation, when the time comes, you are going to panic. Yep. Because it's your nature, right? It's your human nature to like, I was just doing some deep sea diving, free diving, not deep sea, but I was going like 45 feet.
Yeah.
And for me, that's deep.
Yeah.
And your first reaction is panic.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you start feeling like I'm running out of air, your mind tells you need to freak out and get up, get out of here, get some air, go get air.
Yep.
But if you just like ignore that and think rationally, I think that most people just don't think rationally, right? They just freak out. So, we had the same tactics in football. So we would practice every single scenario that could go down on the field. Every scenario is practiced and talked about. That way, when it happens, you've already done it. You've already been there.
Yep.
So is that the kind of the approach that you're taking? You're just putting people in these situations and letting them experience what that's like and how you can kind of come out of it even better.
Yeah, we call it exposure, right? Anytime that you could expose yourself to vulnerability, weakness, deficiency, the worst case scenario, the factor that most people are missing in their lives is conditioning for stress, right? We immediately identify stress as a bad thing. And if you say stress is bad, immediately you've already lost nearly the fight before it's began. Because stress is a component in your central nervous system to activate and mobilize your physical body to be able to survive. We recognize in science a lot of it is it's like fight or flight. It's a sympathetic nervous response. It's cortisol, norepinephrine, all the things. Well, if you think about your life, every single interaction you have with stress really tells you the story of how you're going to survive or not. So, for example, if you're driving in downtown Denver and you hear on the radio your favorite team lost and you start beating the steering wheel and you freak out because you know you lost some money or you're just upset emotionally, or you road rage on people. Some comedian was talking recently on Rogan's podcast where he's like, you ever think it's funny because when you're walking with people and somebody walks in front of you, you're like, yeah, nothing, no big deal. But if somebody's in a car and they pull in front of you, you're like, yo, I'll fucking kill you. Who are you doing? It's like, they're just in a car. They're pulling in front of you. Like, no big deal. We're going in the same direction. But most of us, because we have a miscalculated disposition when it comes to stress in our lives, we think that's the worst case scenario. Mm-hmm. We stress out. We freak out. So if you freak out in normal interactions in life, likely in the worst case scenario, that's going to be real stress, real intense in volume, and real short in duration. That's typically how disaster works. You are not going to survive. So we expose people to stressors as much as possible. Like today, I put my students through a stress shoot, 5 minutes of calisthenics. And I tell them, like, guys, 30 minutes of Pilates, women do every single day in this country. And I'm asking you as grown men, which this class is all men, who have all the tactical gear, all the black multicam, who look the part. They got all the tattoos, all the beards. Like in the entire state of Colorado, it's there. And then you tell them to do 5 minutes calisthenics and they're like breaking down. 3 minutes in at 120 beats per minute, they're like, oh my God, I can't believe it. It's like, guys, this is calisthenics. But the more they expose themselves to that.
What kind of calisthenics do you have them doing?
We do air squats, push-ups, jumping jacks, burpees, and alternating lunges, right? So I basically want to get them to 150, which is optimized for what they'll experience in a fight or flight or sympathetic nervous response. And that's the exercise I want to culminate in and see what they're technically made of. Because a lot of guys fall in love with themselves. It would be like standing in the yard throwing the football. That's easy to do. You culminate it with people trying to rip your head off. That's harder to do.
Yeah.
The more you practice that component of people coming towards you, you evading, standing in your box and throwing the football, the better off you'll be. That's all we're doing. So in civilian training, we technically get proficiency or build proficiency, and then we culminate under stress, physical stress, scoreable targets, time, the constraints, and we see what you're made of. And the point is to see what falls apart.
Yeah.
We want you to fall apart because most guys just fall in love with themselves. They hit themselves in the back and they're like, dude, I crushed it. It's like, no, there's always something to work on.
Always something to get better at.
Always.
And if you're always working on, we used to say this in football, if you're always working on what you're good at, you're just going to stay the same.
You'll never improve.
You really don't stay the same because everybody else around you is working or getting better. Everybody else around you, there's, a moving target. Something Peyton told me. He's like, you either get better or you get worse. You never stay the same.
Interesting.
And that's, to me, that's
true.
Like the truest statement ever because
everybody around you is getting better.
Everybody around you is either getting worse or getting better. Nobody's on this when you're complacent, just like, oh, I just do this today,
Yeah.
I'll just work on this today because that's what I'm good at, or I don't want to look stupid doing this drill, so I'm just gonna, continue. Like I don't like squatting because I'm not a big squatter, so I'm just gonna bench press.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you're not getting better. Like you're not making yourself any better by doing the same thing over and over again.
Interesting.
And thinking you're just gonna be the same. Because guess what? The guy is watching film too. These offensive linemen, those guys get paid, and they're watching film on you too. So what am I doing to get better, at that situation? And I love what you do when you're saying you're getting their heart rate to a certain point and then make them go shoot. Because I do that same thing. I have a target right out here because I got my gym right here. I'll get my heart rate to 160.
Yep.
And I'll come out here, grab my bow, and take shots.
Yeah. And it's hard. Yeah.
And it's hard to lock in and focus. Like after doing
hard focus.
After doing a 2,000 meter row, and trying to do that in 6.5 minutes. Rowing for just 6.5 minutes as hard as I can, jumping off of that, and then doing 100 kettlebell swings, and then 15 burpees.
Yeah.
And then I come over here, grab my bow, and I'm like barely able to stand up, but I'd knock an arrow and pull it back and just release and let it go.
That's the best way to do it.
And it's like, okay, I got my breathing down.
Yep.
And I think that's why people freak out. It's because they're not breathing. They're just like, and I think it's their ego. They're like, I can do this. I'm like, alpha guy that can, tactical guy that's out here, I like you said, they look the part, they're acting like they serve, they're acting this way.
Yeah.
And it's all an act. Well, we're going to expose you,
Yep.
and that's the only way to get better is to expose your weaknesses and then strengthen those weaknesses, right?
Cam Hanes' podcast. I mean, that whole lift, run, shoot. I knew I was going to be weaker. I knew I could shoot a bow, and I knew I could lift weights, but I knew cardiovascular-wise I was out of shape, and especially comparative to Cam Hanes.
Well, yeah, he's an ultra runner.
He's an ultra runner, ultra marathoner. It's like
they're psychos to me. Those guys are psychopaths.
Insane.
How?
And why? More why?
More why?
I can't. We're not designed to run that far, that long. I mean, specifically me and you.
Yeah,
Cam Hanes
guys.
is built. He's like optimized for it. He's dialed for it.
He is. He's like a mountain goat too.
But dude, he's just a specimen. It's
he's
weird.
like running. He's like, oh, I'm on mile 10, and he's like taking a video talking, and I'm like, dude, I would be so gassed at mile. I don't care how much I run. I'd have to lose another 50 pounds to be able to run like that.
How much are you right now? How much?
285. That's like my natural weight.
I'm 235 right now, and like I just not. It's not built in. My knees and my body are not going to be happy.
Yeah, I can hike all day.
Same. Yeah.
But when I start running, because I think I was trained my whole life for sprints, just like short bursts of energy.
Yeah.
And then 20 seconds of rest. So like a football play is about 6 seconds. So if I can go as hard as I can for 6 seconds and then stop,
reset,
line up and do it again.
Yeah.
That's how I've trained my whole life.
Yeah.
So now you're telling me I got to run for
6 days.
For 6 days?
You're
going 100 miles. I'm like, what do you know?
Dude, he's crazy, man.
I'll be crawling.
Respect to those guys. I mean,
big
him,
respect.
Goggins, and that's next level stuff. And I did a 50-miler once. It just did not fare well.
Did you?
Yeah, it was not good.
How much of it did you run, and how much did you think that you just?
I trained up for it, and it was pre-COVID, and then COVID shut down the actual race. So I said, I'll go do it on my own. So I went out 25 miles and was feeling okay, and then came back and barely made it home.
Oh.
And it took me. I mean, it took me all day. It took me a day. But when there's things that happen to my body because when you train in that zone, and I don't know, I'm not an expert at this. So if you are, I apologize. I'm hacking this. But there's a certain bracket that you stay in, and it's painfully slow. So the tendency for most people is to stretch it out, extend themselves, make themselves feel better by extending themselves. And the ultra marathoners will tell you never do that. Because if you come out of that zone, your body, your glycogen, all the systems operate in a different zone, a different operating mechanism. And so I came out of that zone several times and then paid the price for it. And so I was like, I can't do this anymore. I cannot run so slow at this pace. And I extended myself trying to make up time, and that crushed me. And so by the end of it, every joint, everything in my body, all the cramping, all the glycogen depletion, zonking, all those bad things that happened, they were happening to me, and I couldn't recover fast enough. Yeah. And then by the end of those runs, and Cam talks about this in his book Endure, which is a great read, by the way. But at the end of that run, when you start hitting windows where you're missing your feed or your hydration windows, everything compounds itself. So I ended up just like limping back, and my spouse at the time, who was my ex-girlfriend, she was driving up and down the roads looking for me, and she found me, and I said, no, I'm finishing. And she's like, you don't look good. And I'm like, all right, let me get in the car. We drove back home, and I was like, dude, I will never do that again. Dude, it broke me. It broke me really bad.
Oh, it's miserable, man.
And it was it for the gram. It was like just me.
You just want to see if you
suffering
can do it.
just to see if I could do it.
Because you've been training for it.
I was training for it, and I was
you're
disappointed.
invested, and you invested that time.
I was all invested, and people were excited to hear about it, and I was like, I'm going to do it, and I did it. Except it just did not turn out the way I thought.
Right.
It was horrible. It was horrible, man.
Well, some guys were just not built for running. You know what I mean? Like
I could ruck like you. Like if you put a ruck on me in the backcountry, like my 12-mile time, 12-mile standard, I think is 3 hours. I could ruck it in 2. 12-mile time for special operations, I think is 4 or 5 hours. It might even be 5 hours. I could ruck 18 miles in 3 hours, which is essentially running half the time.
Yeah.
So you have to be running with I think it's a 35-pound ruck for 12 miles. It might be 45 pounds. I can't, and this is a decade ago. I can't remember. But anyways, I could move with a ruck for extended periods of time really good, where I saw most of my peers fall off.
Yeah.
But if you did the ruck and you set it aside, those dudes would smoke me in runs.
Yeah.
And I would just be running real slow.
Yeah. Just staying at a certain pace.
Yeah. But I could sprint, but I could not run long distances.
Dude, running a mile for me is still hard. And I wrestled in high school.
Yeah.
So we did a lot of running. Like I did a lot of 5 to 10 mile runs all the time. But it was such a slow pace for me.
Yeah.
And it was all about just keeping your legs moving,
Moving forward, one
just
step at a
moving
time.
forward,
Yeah.
one step at a time, because, that's wrestling, man. Like just keep moving.
Yeah.
Just
What
keep
weight
moving.
class were you in wrestling?
Heavyweight,
Okay, so heavyweight is up
285.
or up.
No, 285 and under. So it's 215 to
Oh,
285.
the cap is 285.
Yeah.
Is there anything above 285?
No,
Okay, you can't be heavier than 285.
no,
Wow.
no. And I think they actually bumped it down to 275.
Wow.
So
You got to be light.
You got to be a little bit lighter, yeah.
Yeah.
But it was. I have so much respect for wrestlers because it was the hardest sport I've ever done. Like
Yeah.
it was tough. Like it's not the match itself; it's the training for the match,
Yeah.
right? Because you're training for, and then you got to do tournaments that are like 3-day tournaments, and you're wrestling 2 or 3 times a day.
Yeah.
And in a heavyweight match, you're probably going to go to overtime when you get good guys. So you're wrestling for 9 minutes.
Yeah.
And 9 minutes of wrestling, you're pummeling with a guy. You're tied up and locked up.
Yeah.
And like at any moment he could shoot on you. That's why like fighters to me are just like the training that those guys do. Because you got to worry about getting kicked and elbowed and choked and taken down and all this other stuff that goes on. Just in wrestling, I had to worry about somebody taking me down.
Yeah.
So I could find ways to like conserve, use energy when I needed to use it and save it when I needed to save it. But the running was just like we'd start the day off with a 30-minute run. Oof. That's how we started our practice off. We'd go run for 30 minutes. Oof. And if anybody if they felt like anybody wasn't running hard, they would like start a time over. So we've got 15 minutes and they started over.
Oh.
They didn't have all these rules like they have now, where we would practice for 2-3 hours.
Yeah.
And then go in there, and they always had 3 fresh guys for me.
Yeah.
So they would have my first drilling partner. We would go live wrestle, and then he would tap out, and then the next guy would come. I was in like this crazy cardiovascular shape, and I can't even like imagine doing that now. What that looks like. I do these pretty intense workouts now, these HIIT workouts that are like I told you some of the stuff, but it's pretty intense and it's hard and it pushes me, and that's why I love it, because it gives me that it's that adversity, right? So it's that anytime that my mind tells me you should quit and then I fight through that, I feel great.
Feels great, yeah.
It feels great to do that.
Yeah.
And I think that like quitting is a disease that if you do it once, it's easier the next time, right?
Same, yeah, I feel that same.
If you quit one time, the next time you want to quit, it's a little easier to quit. So and it gets easier and easier. Next thing you know, you're just like a guy that never really finishes anything.
Yeah, they talk about that a lot in the military. Cam Hanes has talked about it, about quitting. And I just talked to a buddy of mine, Jericho Denman, I podcasted him for Black Rifle, and we were talking about it as well. Like he quit baseball. Fast pitch was the first thing he quit because he was getting pummeled by some kid throwing a ball. And he's like, I can't do this. And his dad, who was an arranger, told him, if you quit once, you'll be a quitter for the rest of your life. And he obviously was not a quitter post that experience, but that generally becomes easier and more conscious to clear your consciousness by just saying, yeah, it's just, and you look for excuses and reasons not to stay in it. And I'm not talking about like you got a shitty relationship and your spouse sucks. Quit. You're not quitting. That's just like walking away or just ending. I'm talking about you're in something that you want to do and you desire to be there and you're quitting because it's hard.
Right.
A lot of people expect, like, I always think it's funny when guys quit SEAL and Green Beret and Ranger training. Like, what you expect? Like, if you manage your expectation, you go into something and you go, this is going to be the shittiest experience of my life, but I'm going to love it. Well, your mindset is you expect it to suck.
You embrace that suck.
You embrace it. My mindset in all special operations selections that I've been through were, I remember in specific selection processes, I was like, this ain't bad. This ain't that bad. And then I got to the moment where it was bad. I'm like, okay, this is what they meant. This is where it hits the road. Like, holy crap, this sucks. But then in the back of my head, I'm like, I love it though.
Yeah.
And you know, if you don't have that mindset going in, and you're potentially looking for the out, I've seen guys, they look for the excuse, they find it, and it's all downhill from there. And that process is like cancer. And you'll see one guy do it, the next guy next to him will do it, and it spreads. It's like, keep that away from me.
Yeah.
I don't want to be near that. And it's something that I experience in my life today. Like, I want to be around winners. I don't want to be around losers.
Exactly. I can't. I had to make a lot of changes in my life with the people that were around me, because when I was playing ball, it was like my teammates were those people.
Yeah.
You know, and I always said, I always say this. I'm like, look, you gotta want this like you want that next breath of air. Like, you have to want. It's too hard to play in this league. It's too hard for you to just be half in and half out and like looking for excuses and reasons why you didn't run to the ball. Like, anything could happen. If you just run to the football, good things will happen to you.
Yeah.
Like, you can make a team and stay on a team for a couple of years and make a couple $1 million if you just run to the football. And a lot of guys wouldn't do it because it was too hard. Because they didn't want it bad enough. There was other things they wanted to do that just wasn't, it wasn't important enough to them to where they would push themselves to that like complete exhaustion where you're cramping and you're like, almost, you think you're going to die. But right when you think you're going to die and you push through that threshold, that's where you get better.
Yeah.
That's where you find like greatness is like just pushing a little harder. And then I never knew how to just stop. So I would like push myself until I just like passed out. Like, I would just fall out and go into a full body cramp and wake up in a bathtub or in a cold tub with IVs in my arm. Because I just would push it until I'm like, I'm not going to die. They're not going to let me die out here. That's the way I looked at it. It was like, there's
awesome.
There's an ambulance right there. They're not going to let me die. I'll just go until I can't go anymore.
Yeah.
And I think too many people, they go into something like you said, and they don't embrace that suck. Like, they're like, this is going to be fun and this is going to be a good time. Yeah, that's going to be fun, but it's also going to suck.
Yeah.
Like, 90% of it's going to suck probably. But you go through that pain for that 10% of awesomeness.
And that slight tinge of discomfort, they flinch or they wince and they're out.
Yeah.
Which is, I think we're in a comfort crisis as we speak, but I look at this and go, dude, our society is so fragile right now and we're so complacent because we're so comfortable.
Yeah.
We haven't made. I was on a range today for 6 hours in the sun. Well, one, I got vitamin D. I got all the things that I needed to out of the training, teaching the students. We got a lot of great feedback. It was a great experience working with 30 students. Then I get my vehicle and I'm in 68-degree AC, drive over here to another box, which is our lives are little boxes of comfort. And tonight I'll be sleeping in a hotel in a really cozy bed. That's not a difficult life.
That's not how most people in most countries live.
100%.
like most countries, you've been all around the world.
Yeah.
I've had the ability to get to travel all over the world, to Egypt, to all over Thailand.
Because of football, because you're
No, because of my wife. I never got on my first time on an airplane was my freshman year of college.
Wow.
So I'd never been anywhere.
So she's a traveler. She wanted you
She
guys
loves
to go
to
travel.
travel.
Oh, really cool.
Like she went and lived in Australia for a year.
Oh, that's awesome.
She is fucking incredible.
So these are vacations.
Yeah, these are vacations.
Travel vacations.
Yeah, and I just never
Wow.
would have thought to go to Egypt, right?
Yeah.
Like our goal was to go on a European trip, but she was like, "Hey, we could stop in Egypt on the way. Like, so let's do it." So we did. We spent 24 hours in Egypt and saw literally every part of Cairo we could see. I call it extreme vacation.
We got 24 hours.
Yeah,
Go.
she's like, we got 24 hours. We're going to the Great Pyramid. We go there, and we ended up. This is a great story because it was like so sketchy. Because if you've been to Egypt, obviously,
Egypt is sketchy.
it is a sketchy place.
Sketchy.
And they don't really like Americans there.
They hate Americans.
Yeah, and we went to the pyramid, and our hotel was really close to it, and they took us to the pyramid, and this guy's, he's talking to me, and he's like, "Hey, don't drink the water here because they, it's not like they'll try to poison you." And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, they'll take like shitty creek water and put it in a bottle and give it to you, pretty much." And I was like, "Whoa." I was like, "Okay." And he was like, "Listen, do you want to go? You want to like see the real Cairo?" And I was like, "Yeah."
The answer is always yes.
Yeah, I want to see the real Cairo. Like, I don't want to do all the touristy stuff. He's like, "Well, first we're going to climb to the center of the pyramid." And I was like, "Hell yeah." So we climbed all the way to the center of the Great Pyramid.
Really?
Into the tomb, yeah.
Dude.
And it was badass. It was like a 40-meter climb in this little box, like this big.
I assume that's not something you could just
no,
normally
you're not supposed
do.
to be able to do it. They have guys guarding the door, and
he had the hookup.
But he had the hookup, and they were like, "All right, go ahead, but you can't take any pictures." And I was like, "Okay, fine," but we did.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did you take pictures?
Yeah, we took pictures.
So rad.
So it was really badass.
Oh.
And then he took us after that. He was like, "All right, we had to leave with our hotel. The guy from the hotel, he had an AK-47 on him.
Yeah,
because it's like destabilized there. It was not good at that time. This is in 2018, so it was like they just come out of a civil war pretty much.
yeah. It was called the Arab Spring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like still pretty bad.
The second version of it.
He goes, "Hey, I want to show you the real Cairo." He's like, "Go back to the hotel, or when you're going back to the hotel, ask him if he'll take you to this falafel place." And I'm like, I was like, "Okay," and then what? And he's like, "Then just go out the back door and I'll be there." I was like, "So we just gotta ditch him?" He's like, "Yeah, because if not, they won't let you. Like, they'll make a big fuss about it." And I was like, "All right, dude." And he showed me pictures of him with other Americans.
Yeah, he knew the underground.
That were actually people that other players that he had worked with before.
Yeah.
So he knew.
That's really cool.
So it was like I got really lucky to run into this guy, but he
It probably wasn't unintentional though.
no,
I likely think
he probably does it a lot. That's probably how he makes a living.
Well, they probably look at those guys probably have access to itineraries.
Oh yeah,
They can look at you and go, "Oh, you're in business class, huh? Oh, let's see who these guys are." And they probably Google the names from business class.
Oh yeah.
I've seen that happen before. And some of those guys work directly for the tourism ministry of those countries to one, collect foreign intelligence on people, but it's all passive. So it's like it's not a part of an op or clandestine kind of operation, but it's force protection. It's like, oh, get the important person, bring them in, connect with them, build rapport or relationships, and get information.
Right.
And that information is reported, but it could be informal.
What do people want to do?
Yeah.
Right. Like, did they have fun doing this? Did they have fun doing that? Like,
Yeah.
because they're trying to. Tourism is like that's how they make their money.
Egypt's number one industry is tourism.
Yeah.
And after COVID, I mean, it destroyed that. I mean, it destroyed the whole industry.
Yeah.
In most places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he said, "Go to the falafel." We go there. He told us to make sure we order a tea when we get there because it's really good, right? They wouldn't serve us in there. They wouldn't serve my wife and I. Like, they wouldn't even come talk to us.
Really?
Yeah. And I was like, wow, they really hate us in here. Like, they hate us. So
Did they know you were American?
I mean, yeah. Look at me.
Well, could you play? I mean, you could play it off like you're any. You could have been like, I'm Scandinavian, I'm Norwegian, and they would be like, oh, cool, we'll take care of you because I've seen that happen too. Because I've been like, oh, I'm Canadian, and they're like, oh, yeah.
Well, my wife said that when she lived in Australia. When
Yeah.
she lived over there, she just told everybody she was from Canada because she got treated better.
Yep, that's
So
how it is.
I was like, well, that's crazy. And I was, but
Isn't
me,
that
I
crazy?
like. scream American sometimes. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
The
she's
loud
like, tell
American.
people from the States. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, I walk in there, I'm like laughing loud, like, you know.
Well, you're big. You're a
Yeah.
big dude. They're like, this is definitely American.
This guy's from America. Like, they're
Yeah.
not feeding them like that anywhere else, you know.
So the falafel place didn't serve
They
you?
wouldn't serve us. So I get a WhatsApp message from the guy, and I was like, all right, we got to go. And she was like, I don't know. My wife was like super sketched. I was like, we'll be fine. You know, it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
But in the back of my head, I was like, this could get real Western real quick. You know, but we go out the back door, we jump in the car with him, and he just like speeds out of there. And he's going down the wrong way on the street. And then he like jumps the median to get on the right side. We go down, and he's like, I'm going to take you guys to my house first. And I was like, oh, this is going to take us to your house. We go to his house, and he like introduces me to his whole family, like his wife
really cool.
and his kids and everything. And I was like, oh, this is great. You know, he's like, you guys want to ride on some camels? And I was like, yeah. So we ride camels around. There's like kids chasing us around. There's why, you know, the dogs over there are out of control.
Yeah.
Wild dogs running around. And then we went up into the sand dunes. Well, first we went and seen some like purebred horses.
Yeah.
Arabian horses. Awesome. Really cool. That was such a cool experience to see those horses.
That's crazy.
How they take care
Are
of
they
them.
wild or they're domesticated?
They're domesticated,
Okay.
but like I'd never seen a purebred Arabian, you know, in Arabia, you know.
Yeah.
So I was like, let's do it. And then he took us up into the dunes, and he had like a tent set up there, like a little camp set up with a generator, and they cooked us dinner up there. And
Really?
it was so cool, man. It was such a cool experience. Yeah. And then, like I said, we were only there for 24 hours.
So you're doing all this hip pocket, just winging it.
Yeah.
And then you that's the best. Those are the best, you know, those experiences which aren't so pre-planned, that are very those random spontaneous adventures. Those are the best memories, man.
Yeah, it was the best. The worst part about it was, so the next day we had to go to Athens. So the next morning early, we woke up and went to Athens and spent the whole day, just one day in Athens too. So seeing everything in Athens, and it was hotter than hell.
Oof.
And I had the worst diarrhea.
From Egypt?
From Egypt, yeah. From that dinner.
Oh yeah. That dude, the bacteria, the bacterium is just completely different.
Oh, it's unreal. I don't know how it didn't bother her. I think it's because she ate the chicken and I ate the beef.
Oh yeah, never eat the beef.
Yeah, and I was like, she's like, I wouldn't eat that beef. And I was like, it looks really good and smells good. I'm gonna eat it. And I did.
And you shouldn't have ate it.
Dude. And the bathroom, you know the bathrooms in Europe, how small they are.
Oh yeah.
Dude, I'm just sweating up a storm. And every bathroom I saw, I stopped at and just like pissed out of my ass, you know. And then
It sucks, man.
but it was cool because I got to see all of Athens. And then we went to Santorini.
Where's Santorini?
Greece. It's like an island.
Oh, that's right,
Greece.
yeah.
It's that volcanic island.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, we went there. Awesome. It's like when you see the pictures, it's all the white concrete buildings.
Yeah.
We went there and we were supposed to spend a day there, then go over to Mykonos for 2 days and like kind of party.
Yeah.
But I was like, I need a day.
Yeah.
Like I'm not moving. I'm staying in the bed all day. I need a day of rest. I'm so dehydrated and so miserable. I need a day. So we did. We just stayed there for an extra day, and then we went to Paris. And you want to talk about American hating people? The Parisians.
Isn't it crazy?
It's not all of France. It's just
Yeah.
Parisians. Like we get to the hotel, and this guy walks out. The front desk guy walks out to help us with our bags, sees we're Americans, turns around, and walks back in. Wouldn't help us with our bags. And then he like changed our room and wouldn't give us a room we had that was like facing the Eiffel Tower, you know? Because this is when I was still playing, and we get very little bit of time to like travel. So when we travel, we just like do it right, you know? It was like a small boutique hotel that she wanted to stay at. That was right by the Eiffel Tower.
And they were treating you guys
And they were
like that.
treating us like shit. And then the elevator was so small I couldn't get on it, and they were like, "You can't get on the elevator." Like, sorry. So I had to like carry our bags up.
You're American and you're big.
Yeah.
You ain't getting on.
Yeah. So Paris kind of sucked, but then we went to Rome. Rome was cool.
Rome's cool, man.
Really cool place.
That's one of my favorite cities.
Yeah, it's a really cool city. Loved it there.
So awesome. Good food, too.
Oh, unbelievable food.
God.
London's cool too. I like London.
I do, too.
I think London's a really cool city. I had a good time
yeah.
there.
England's cool overall.
Yeah,
The
it's a
castles, the food, the people.
Yeah.
For the most part, there's a lot of loud people. But all the food in all those places.
Yeah.
Money.
Have you been to Thailand?
I have. So I spent a little time in Malaysia and went into Thailand a couple times, but not like the Thailand, like Phuket and these big places.
Yeah.
I haven't been.
Yeah, I highly suggest doing a trip over there.
Really? What city?
So I would fly into Bangkok and leave Bangkok immediately. So we went Bangkok to Chiang Mai, which is like the mountains,
Yep.
and go to one of the elephant refugees.
Cool.
Refuges.
Refuges.
Refuges. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
But these are all like rescued elephants.
Oh, really cool.
And they're like the coolest. Like they're like big dogs.
Yeah.
They just want to hang out with you, and you just like walk around. You go on a hike with them, and you're like feeding them bananas and watermelon the whole
And they're
way.
different elephants. They're different
smaller.
species,
Yeah,
right?
there's Asian.
They have these big
Yeah.
floppy things.
Big floppy ears. Like
Yeah,
they're
so
really
cool.
cool. And they're just like, it was a big sister, and then like a teenage sister, and then like a baby one.
Oh man.
They were all three with us, and the baby one like thinks it's a lap dog, so it's like trying to like lay on you. It's like a 600-pound lion or a 600-pound elephant. It's like rolling on you, and then they take you to this river, and they get in the river with them and give them a bath.
Oh, that's really cool.
And
I think
it
I've
was
seen
like
that.
the coolest thing ever, man. It was
so
so
awesome.
cool. And then from Chiang Mai, we took a little puddle hopper over to I want to say Koh Samui. So we went
Is that on the coast?
Yeah,
Okay. So
and
you were inland on the mountains, and then you went to the coast.
yeah.
Okay.
And then I can't remember where everywhere. I know we went to Phuket, Koh Samui, Koh Phangan for the full moon party,
Yeah.
which was awesome.
That's really cool.
Unbelievable. I mean, just people everywhere.
The food too,
And
in
the
Thailand.
food in Thailand.
Bro, it's it's my favorite. Oh man, it's so good.
It is so fresh. It's so good.
That's what it is. It's fresh.
Yeah.
And it's so good.
And then I know we spent 14 days there.
Ooh,
in
that's a
Thailand.
good. That's
Yeah,
a good run.
It was our honeymoon. So
Cool.
Yeah, so it was really just an unbelievable time. And then the last day and night we spent in Bangkok, and we went and we did like a tour of the Bangkok River, and that was the most disgusting place I've ever seen. And I was like, this is
Gross.
disgusting. They said don't let the water touch you because you'll get hepatitis. And there's people swimming in it.
Yeah, bathing and
And
splashing.
then they
their
have those
faces in it.
monitor lizards everywhere. These big, like 6-foot-long monitor lizards swimming around everywhere.
Gross.
And I was like, this is disgusting. And then their huts are like just dropping. Their droppings are just falling right down to the river. So,
Yeah, and then dude's splashing. His
and he's
face
like
with it.
washing his. I'm like, this is crazy. And that was my first real experience in like a third world country, other than like Mexico, which can get kind of nasty down there. But like for the most part,
Yeah,
it's still decent.
still civilized.
Yeah, it's still kind of civilized, but it was just like to see like how you have these giant skyscrapers, and then you have a house on bamboo sticks
No man.
right next to each other.
The disparity between
It's like,
wealth and
whoa.
poverty is insane.
Yeah, and that's when I first realized how lucky we were to live in this country,
So lucky.
because nobody lives like that here.
Yeah,
like
no
even the homeless live better than that here.
They do.
They-
They're giving free crack pipes and free drugs and food. And, I mean, they live really well.
They do.
Nobody's suffering here.
No, not real suffering.
No.
Most of the homeless here, like that's by choice.
It is.
Like
and,
they made a
yeah.
choice.
And most of them, when surveyed, say they'd rather be homeless.
You know what's crazy? Have you heard the story about the tunnels under Vegas,
Under Vegas?
under Las Vegas, under the Strip? There's
Uh-uh.
like these flood tunnels, these tunnels for flooding, which obviously
Sewer.
doesn't really
flood.
flood there.
Yeah.
It's for rain flooding.
Okay.
And it doesn't really rain a lot there, so
Yeah.
like they don't. There's a whole city down there
Of bums?
of people. There's people down there that have never like seen above ground.
Like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
yes,
That's intriguing.
yeah. I really would like to.
I'll be in Vegas tomorrow. Not tomorrow, the next day, the following day.
Yeah, you should look it up. Look into it.
Dude, I want to go in there.
I know, me too. I just don't know how do you get there?
So it's an actual thing,
It's an actual thing. Yeah.
but you can't visit it. I assume it's
mean, I'm
just
sure
like
you could.
oh, interesting.
I'm sure
I got a
you
couple law enforcement buddies there. I might ask them about
You
it.
should ask them and see if they could take you down there.
Wow.
But I guess it's like they have their own like language in some areas of it. Like yes, yeah.
I need one of those tour guides to show me around. Take me to falafel down in the holes.
Oh yeah, man.
shit.
Well, shit, brother. I really appreciate you coming
Oh, this is
and telling
awesome.
your story and having a good time with me, man. I really appreciate it. This is episode 5.
Yeah. Who's your first episode?
My first one was Scott Parker. He was an Avs enforcer for the Colorado Avalanche.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, And he's I've known him for years, and I just thought it'd be a good one to have for the first time.
Who's two? What was 2-3?
Justin Lasik was 2.
Yep.
You know who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Justin, awesome,
Really cool,
dude. Unbelievable stories.
Oh, he's awesome.
Just such a cool dude.
Yeah.
3 was my old teammate Emmanuel Sanders.
Yep.
And then 4 was AG from Toehold.
Yep.
You know who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And then now you.
That's really cool, man. What's cool is you could tap into. I mean, like Cam taps into hunters. I mean, he taps into a lot of people, but the ability for you to tap into professional athletes. I'm actually intrigued by that because you really don't hear a lot of you guys talking about stuff like post the experience,
right?
Which is similar to like special operations talking about their experiences. I'm very intrigued by that, so I'm looking forward to catching up on those podcasts and also listen to you grow in the future, man. That's cool.
Yeah, thank you, man. I'm really happy about it. I'm really excited about the future here. I want this bad. Like this is what I want to do. I stopped doing radio. I stopped doing pretty much everything other than this and my hunting show on YouTube, and that's what I want to do. And like I said, I'm going to talk to Kevin McNamara today.
Yeah.
And we're going to come up with a game plan to do some stand up together.
Hell yeah.
Because I just think I don't know. You could take a story and tell it, and make it fun, and you know, I do a good job of keeping my ego in check too. So
make fun of yourself and everybody will laugh.
As long as you could do that, like I make fun of myself really well, so it's, you know, it's perfect. So
I'm looking forward to it.
So thanks, brother. I really appreciate you.
I appreciate you, brother.
Awesome time, man.
Thanks, man.